Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 4 of the Colorado Build Diary. If you've watched it along so far at home, thanks so much, really appreciate it. I never expected anyone to watch the channel in the way they have, so thanks so much for that. If you watched the last episode, you'll see the drive shafts are back on the car, but there's a few bits and pieces that are still missing from the front end that's holding up putting the brakes and hubs back on. The main thing is the front suspension, which is down there. I'll get to that in a second. It's a bit tired and they are just cheap ass coilovers, so but I'll explain why I'm keeping them in a bit. As another update, I've had a bit of an incident with the tensioner. I'll explain that in a second. So let's get into it. So most of you that are watching the channel will probably already recognise this. It is a auxiliary belt tensioner for a VR6. What I didn't know, and most of you probably already do know because you're not noobs like me, is that this little guy is on a left-handed bolt. So cue brute force and ignorance and you end up with a sheared mount for it. So obviously that's going to have to go in the bin now, which is gutting considering I'm on a bit of a budget for this project. But luckily a nice chap named Bob sent me a new one, and it didn't look like this when I got it. It looked a bit tired, but lick of paint later and it's came out quite nicely. You'll see how it looked before on the Instagram as well. But yeah, bearing's silky smooth, doesn't need any work of that. A bit of a grease, a bit of a lick of paint, and it's good to go. So let's get on the car. There we go. Tension is back on, looking beautiful. Nice shiny new bolts, because I hate putting rusty bolts back on if I can help it. Another little update for you is, you remember from the last episode, the thermostat gasket had stretched. Got a new one of those in the post, sorted thanks to eBay. And the thermostat is back on. I don't know if you can see that. You can just see a massive red, but it's not the most exciting update, but there we are. So engine's back together for now. Waiting on parts for the water pump, pulling the water pump, which is missing, but I'll get to that in good time. So yeah, let's get on with the suspension. So as mentioned, here's my pair of cheap ass coilovers. I believe they're Joms, but don't quote me on that. They're about 200 quid for the set when I bought them, which was back in about 2013. They haven't actually done that many miles. So they're not leaking oil or anything. They are obviously very tired, as is most of the car. But I'm sure we can do something about that. So the reason I'm not just replacing them, which most of you are shouting at the screen now, probably saying, why are you not just buying new? Reason being is I'm on a really tight budget. I've got about 30 quid a month to spend to get this thing built back up and get it back on the road, due to, you know, kids, house, blah, blah, blah. So I don't have the budget for a new set of coilovers, so let's make these work. So the plan is, I'm going to take the springs off, strip them all down, give that bit of a paint, try and clean the threads up. Going to have to do something about this dust cover, which I'm not entirely sure what I can do with yet. And I've got a few bits which I count as service items to replace. So we have new February top mounts and some mile, however you say that, new top hats to go on as well. So yeah, first job, let's get these things apart. So yeah, you guys aren't stupid, you know the drill. Don't touch springs without putting a set of these on. Sure, you've all got a set. If not, they're cheap as chips and they probably, you know, well, one day they might save your life. So don't touch springs without a set. So that's my health and safety lecture over. So yeah. how it goes together, mate. There it goes together. There we go, springs are off. Came off easier than I thought. Normally the top nut is a bit of a nightmare, but like I said, these haven't been used that much and they've been dry stored for a lot of the time, so they're right. Not that you can tell, look at the state of the bloody threads, but never mind. That is going to be the decisive factor as to whether we keep these coilovers or not, as to whether I can get these little locking rings off. There's 3 of them, so I'm going to soak these threads in oil now and see what happens. Right, so first hurdle, covered it in oil, and I've beaten the absolute you know what out of it with a sledgehammer. All I've succeeded in doing is absolutely making a mess of the old locking rings. So looks like these are probably destined for the bin, which is a shame because they worked, and they're not actually that bad condition. I'll keep trying, but I fear they may beat me. We'll see. Watch this space. So another little update. You'll notice there is some hoses hanging at the bottom of the car there for the power steering pump. They're in a hell of a mess, but they will be cleaned up before I put everything back together. The reason they're hanging down is because I've decided to strip that down because it was covered in all sorts of grease and stuff, rust and stuff. So I'm going to strip this back to bare metal and give it a bit of a paint, which I've already done to the body, which is up here, which has come out quite nicely considering what it was looking like. I'll put a picture up in a second of how hanging it was, so it should be good. Get that back on the car soon, and then I can start refilling the power steering fluid. Happy days. So a bit of an update for you. Just don't know when I'm going to fit this in the video, but it's happening alongside the suspension. So you may have seen on Instagram the intake's now back on. Cleaned all the pipe work up. Really pleased how that came out. So chuck that on. I'm probably going to have to take it off again in a bit because I've got to do the water pump, but it gets it out of the box and it gets it clean, probably the safest place for it. I've also had a bit of a tidy up under here. So if you can see that with the light. Just a few bits that are looking a bit sorry for themselves, and also got the fan controller relay back in, all cleaned up, back on. A few other bits and pieces. If you've seen the episode with the roof, doing the garage roof, it's now been up for about 2-3 weeks. We're now in sort of end of November, start of December, and no condensation. So dry car, happy days. So yeah, let's get back to the suspension. There we go, as you probably guessed from watching the video, that was a pain in the bum. Every single bit fought me the whole way. It was all sea solid. A couple of top tips from a couple of mates off Instagram. One is use brake fluid on the threads to try and get things unstuck. Seems to work really well, better than penetrating fluid and stuff. And secondly is swear at it. And if it's not working, just swear louder, which seemed to work. It helped me anyway. So give it a go. This ring, as you can probably guess, it's taken an absolute battering. So that ain't going anywhere near the car again. But luckily, I've got this, which is off the back set of cheap-ass coilovers that I've had before. And it's the same diameter, same thread. It's a little bit taller, but that doesn't matter because that bit will go inside the spring anyway. So, onwards. Next job is to de-rust these and give them a look of paint. Not feeling the blue, so I'm going to see what I can do about that. So yeah, let's crack on with that. So yeah, everything's cleaned up, ready to go back on the car. Really pleased how the springs came out. Lovely finish to them. And also this bit came out quite nice as well. If anyone's interested in what paint I use, the black is this stuff, which I swear by. I use it all the time. Great stuff. And also, this is the same paint I used on the brakes themselves. So it should be an awesome colour match. Should look really good when it's back on the car. No endorsements, just stuff I found to use over the years. It's worked out quite nicely. So yeah, next job, let's get these looking like this. So there we are, guys. That's where I'm going to leave this one, both sides back on. Really chuffed how they came out, considering where I started with them. They were in a proper mess. Next episode is going to be something else under the front arches, probably getting the hubs on, maybe getting some brakes on, we'll see. But that ain't going to be till next year now, so this will be the last one I put out this year. So hope you have a good one, enjoying whatever you do, and I'll catch you next year. Cheers and gone. What am I doing? What am I doing?